Hello again. Today we will talk about defect wines. I'm sure you heard of the concept corked wines. So we will talk a bit about that. That's the main defect, but I also think it's a defect of wine that gets the blame for other defects that people are less aware about. So the two other ones we're going to mention is oxidized wines and cooked or out of condition. That can be due to bad storage. It's quite close to the oxidized wines. But so mainly there's the defect that comes of the cork and the one that can come of temperature or too much oxygen. A corked wine is nothing dangerous at all for your health. However, it ruins the flavors and the aromas of the wine. It will take away all the fruit flavor, and the wine will smell and taste like wet cardboard or humid earth cellar or with a chlorine touch. It's not nice at all. And that comes of the corks. So corks, natural corks, they're made out of the bark from the cork oak, sorry. And they're grown much in Portugal and in Spain. And they strip the bark of the wood of the oak every 9 years, and they make corks out of it. And when they treat the oak forests, they don't know exactly how it came about, and there are different studies. But there's a chemical that is in some cork that is called TCA, trichloroanisole it's called, and this in very, very, very low levels, so let's call it TCA, very, very low levels that are in the cork. Then when you put the cork in the bottle, together with the alcohol solution in the wine, will extract this chemical TCA and will come into the wine. And if it's in contact with the wine, it will take away the fruit and make it taste like I just explained. So of course it's very terrible if you open an expensive bottle of wine and it's corked. They have done a lot of things to rectify this problem in the cork industry, and but still today a lot of tests and shows that around depending on how good a cork it is, but around 4 to 5% of all wines closed with a natural cork have some TCA. Some at very, very low levels, so you perhaps can't detect it, but some that really ruins the wines. So the reason, perhaps you noticed there's a lot more of the synthetic corks, the plastic corks. The reason why that has been developed is to get rid of the cork taint in the wine. And also screw caps, like in New Zealand, 95% of all wines are closed with screw caps today. And in Australia, I think there's around 70 or 75% closed with screw caps. So the new world, and the new world, when you talk about wine, is Europe is the old world and everything not Europe is the new world. New world is very modern in terms of winemaking. And France and Italy and Spain, they're very modern in terms of the winemaking and quite traditional still. And I would think it's very, very long time until France will accept to bottle their Bordeaux wines or Burgundy wines under screw cap. Some are, but to a very, very, very much lesser degree than it's done in the New World. But all this is mostly to get rid of the cork defect. And how to tell is by this smell. So once you've learned to recognize this musty, wet cardboard chlorine-like smell, once you know that, just after a couple of wines you taste it, you will react like, oh, this is not how wine should smell. But even now, because I think you instinctively, even though you don't know how the cork smells, if you would smell a wine that's corked, I think that you would pick up on something strange, and then you could ask the host or the child guest, the main one, I feel there's something wrong with this wine, would you mind checking? So please remember, every bottle that's served needs to be checked for this, because it's, as I said, 5%. If it's under screw cap or synthetic, then the cork will not be the problem. And I also want to stress that cork defect cannot come through bad storage. I've had some clients who's been doing crossings and they come back and say, oh, all my wine is cork now because we're doing 2 crossings. That cannot happen. The cork, the TCA will come into the wine regardless storage temperature or conditions, if it is in the cork to start with. What can happen during a crossing, however, is the temperature can increase, and the fact that the wine is moving all the time, it's not the best conditions for wine storage. So that can speed up the oxidation process. And also the hot temperature will make the wine less fresh and less vibrant, so we can have like a cooked flavor. So I have 2 wines here that, so how to recognize if a wine is oxidized or let's say cooked, is the first thing is color. If you pour a white wine, a white dry wine, and you have this color, you should go, oh, I think there's something wrong with this. There are a tiny percentage of producers using a very traditional technique that can result in this color, and also if the wine is sweet, it can be of this color. But generally, if it's a white table wine and you will pour it from the bottle and you have a dark color like this, or even a bit lighter, then the wine will be oxidized. So you will need to get another bottle. How this wine will taste, so remembering it's white, it has aromas of white wines that are oxidized smell of apple puree. So it has nothing of this vibrant floral freshness, melon or tropical fruit or nothing like that. It's just very dull and of apple puree, like browning apples. And the taste also will completely lack freshness. A red wine, on the other hand, that is oxidized, will have, some wines can have this color, but it's very, very rare to have a red wine which is this brown. That is okay. This will be an oxidized wine that has had too long time in the bottle, probably due to bad storage, because if it's hot, then all the chemical process will speed up. And an oxidized wine, red wine, will smell like Madeira. I don't know if you've had Madeira, but it smells like figs and dates and a bit volatile and oxidized. So that's how a red wine will smell, and also lacking all the fruit and all the freshness. So it's also you need to get another bottle. A wine that is out of condition has to do often with oxidation, but it can also be a temperature issue. There's also an article on the website about wine storage and the ideal temperatures. And if it's too hot, as I mentioned, hot temperature will speed up any chemical reaction, and oxidation is a chemical reaction. So it will take away all the freshness and the crispness and the aromatic profile of a wine, and it will be quite dull and flat. So that is of course more difficult to taste and to recognize. So the main wines to consider is corked wines and oxidized wine, and remembering that cork wines can only come from the cork. It has not to do with transport or storing conditions, and that the oxidized wines will have had too much oxygen coming in, and that process is speeded up by hot temperatures. So in terms of storage, try to try to keep it as cool as possible, not in the fridge though, because the wine standing up, if you have bottles standing up, the cork will harden and fail, and leaving oxygen can come in the cork, so that will lead to oxidation. Bottles needs to be stored on the side to keep the cork humid from the inside of the bottle to avoid oxygen coming in. And as I said, if you taste regularly the wines you serve, you will develop a skill for recognizing, even though you just taste healthy wines. As soon as a bad one comes up, you will instantly go, oh, this doesn't smell that it usually does. If it's white, I expect fresh and crisp, and this is not. And if it's red also, if you just get this, so just by your instinct, if you taste often and just make it a habit and taste every bottle you open, I think you will develop a very good nose for what a good wine is and what is not. Thank you again for listening.